Okay, this is the famous or infamous intermediate shaft, and I'm going to put it in position at this end where the intermediate shaft bearing is at. And what we'll find is on the other end, the oil pump has an opening that matches the one in the end of the block where I showed the flashlight through. This is going to be a little hard to do one-handed. We'll give it a whirl here. The oil pump engages the end of the intermediate shaft, and what I did not do is there's a hex key that goes in there that connects one to the other. So here's the port that we identified, and when I rotate the oil pump around, right the first time. When I rotate the oil pump around, right in there, those two openings are going to align. So I'm not going to tear the oil pump apart for this video, but basically the oil pump is here at the end of the intermediate shaft. It's spinning and it shoots the oil out here to another smaller rectangular port. Intermediate shaft drives the oil pump. Something I will not show in this video, but the intermediate shaft is driven by a short chain off the end of the crankshaft. Okay, while I'm here, should have mentioned it in the last snippet. This is the oil pressure relief valve housing. And in behind this right here is a spring and a plunger. And without taking it apart, I can assure you that what it does is when the oil pressure reaches a certain set point, it pushes the plunger down against the spring force and it bypasses some oil back into the suction side of the pump. Oh, by the way, here's the key that goes in between the intermediate shaft and the oil pump. And so there is the oil pressure relief valve. Basically, it's a relief valve. It recycles some oil back to this area down here on the suction side of the pump. But what I really wanted to show you was right around here is an oblong port. When we put the two case halves together, that oblong port is going to line up with this oblong port right here. So once the oil enters the block right here, where does it go? Well, it doesn't go very far. If I take and shine my light in there, it comes in, it makes a right-hand turn, it comes up and it follows this passageway over to this spot right here. We'll have to tip this up, but this goes into the oil filter housing, and this comes out of the oil filter housing. Okay, the oil comes from the oil pump. It follows this zigzag path, and if we hold our light right here, we'll see it shining into the one part of the oil filter housing. If we go to the other side, is shining into the middle. So some people, it's not an issue on this engine, but some people talk about which way does the oil flow through the oil filter. Well, it looks to me like it comes in on the outside and it leaves in the middle. So now I'm going to introduce an important piece or two pieces to the story here. Since I last shot, I have now placed what is known as the crankshaft carrier, which is a massive casting, and it is sitting on top of the area that I was videotaping in the previous segment. If you look down in this direction, you're seeing the shells for the main shaft bearings. There's 3 holes for the pistons, a bearing on either side. So each rod is supported by 2 bearings. Very robust design. Now this has its mirror image over on the other case half, and I've laid it into position. So the story here, and I'm going to have to stop and reset this. The next time you see it, I will have removed the crankshaft carrier, but I wanted to show you, generally how it was in the block and how it was placed. As long as I'm here, I would mention that oil drizzles out of every bearing continuously while the engine is running, and it flows vertically down into the sump. And that's part of the story about the return path, quote unquote, of the oil. I'm looking for it. Yeah, here it is. Hold on. I don't know if this will fit in. I think so. This plastic piece goes around like this. And I think it's probably a combination of what you might call a windage tray. And in other words, it kind of separates the air currents from the rotating crank from the sump. And it also tends to direct the oil. So this opening here would mate on the other side. It actually goes up under the intermediate shaft. So this is a key component of how the oil gets back to the sump.